Hi, this is Abby with the Bead Place and beadplace.net, and today I'm going to show you how to make a fairy bangle. So I'm going to start out with 5 feet of colored soft flex. Today I'm using black. So this is a cut length of 5 feet. You could use half of one of the mini spools. And so I have a bead stopper, which is this little spring. Works just like this. You squeeze the 2 ears together and it opens. I have 6 miracle beads, so those are beads with a large hole. I have 24 of color A of 4mm Swarovski crystals. I have 24 of color B of 4mm Swarovski crystals. I have a package of Tiara Cast hex spacer beads. I have a Tiara Cast link, and I have a gold-filled crimp bead. So I'm going to start out by sizing my hand. So I've got a length of the soft flex, and I'm just going to kind of put my hand like this so that I can figure out how big this needs to be so that I can just kind of slip it on over my hand. So I've got a length about like that. I'm going to secure that with the bead stopper and try it on. Looks like it fits pretty well. So what I'm going to do, holding that length, I'm going to string on my link, and then I'm also going to string on a couple crystals, and then a couple of the other crystals, and some hex beads. And you kind of do this in a random order. You don't really want to have too much of a pattern because chances are it's not going to stick to that pattern. Then I'm going to string on a miracle bead and a couple more beads at random. So as you can see, I'm just stringing on a random pattern. And then I am going to string on another miracle bead. So before and after each miracle bead, you want to string on a couple of the crystals and the hex beads. So I have a pretty good sequence of beads here, and I am going to secure the first strand with the bead stopper. So I'm going to double check to make sure that that's a good fit. And I'm going to loosen it just a little bit. There we go. So what I'm going to do with the long end of the soft flex is string on some crystals and some hex beads and some miracle beads. So I have on another sequence of beads and a miracle bead. Remember to start and finish each miracle bead with crystals. And then what I'm going to do is weave the long end through the next miracle bead in the row. So my long end is coming out right here, and I'm going to take it through one of the miracle beads and kind of match the size, just like that. So then I'm going to add more crystals and hex beads, and then I'm going to add another miracle bead. And since I've added a miracle bead, I have to add more crystals and hex beads. Okay, so I've got a sequence about like that. And I'm going to go through the link. So each time you make a pass through, you need to go through the link. And then it's definitely a lot sturdier if you weave through the miracle beads a lot. So I'm going to find the next miracle bead and go through that one. So since I went through a miracle bead, I have to do more crystals and hex beads, and then another miracle bead, and then more crystals So a section like that. And I'm going to go through the next miracle bead in the row. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 miracle beads on the bracelet right now. So I'm going to add crystals and hex beads, and then I'm going to go through the next miracle bead, and then the link. So I'm going to add crystals and hex beads. I know this is repetitive, but that's kind of the way this bracelet works. Little sequins, just like that. I'm going to add a miracle bead, and then another sequence of crystals and hex beads, just like that. So far I have this, and I'm going to weave through the next miracle bead. So now I have all of my miracle beads on, and I'm going to just kind of start adding beads and then going through the next miracle bead and adding beads and going through the next miracle bead. So this is the fun part. So I have my little sequence of beads. I'm going to go through the next miracle bead. And I'm just going to keep doing that throughout the bracelet. And sometimes what you want to do if you get to a miracle bead that you already have gone through a bunch of times, just kind of skip over that one and go to the next one and go through it. That way your bracelet looks a little bit more wispy. You see what I'm doing? I'm kind of resizing the bracelet by just kind of gently pulling on it, and that makes all of the strands the same length again. Okay, so what I'm going to do now to finish it is I've gone through a miracle bead, and I'm going to pick up my last few crystals and hex beads, and I am going to go through the miracle bead close to my bead stopper. So I'm going to go through that one, and then if I have a little bit of extra tail, I can just kind of bring that around and weave it through all of the miracle beads to kind of keep it a little bit more tight. It's going to stop the beads from wanting to move all around. So don't go through all of them, but just kind of weave it through and just pick out ones that will make it look a little bit more even. So if you have some areas that look a little empty, you can kind of concentrate on those areas. But just make sure that you're always going through the link. Okay, so I don't have enough soft flex to weave all the way back around, so I know that I'm good to stop. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm securely grabbing the end that is in the bead stopper. That way none of the beads fall out. And so I've got my two ends here. And so I'm going to grab a crimp bead. So this is a standard 2x2 crimp tube, and that's the standard size for the medium gauge soft flex plier. So I'm going to slide the crimp on my long end, going one way, then I'm going to take the wire that's going the other way through the crimp bead in the opposite direction. So then what I'm going to do is put my bead stopper back on one end to to secure the one tail end down to the other end. So just like that, and I've got my crimp right here. And this is just kind of to add a little bit of extra security in case you drop it, you don't want to lose any beads. So I'm going to rework the size of the bracelet just to kind of even everything out. And then I'm going to do one last check to make sure it goes on. And it's a perfect fit. If it wasn't a perfect fit, there are a couple different ways that you can resize it. So let's just say it was a little bit too small. What you would do is just pull the ends coming out of the crimp that go into the bracelet, you'd pull those and then work the slack into the bracelet. And say it was a little bit too big, what you're going to do is pull it from the tail ends, and that's going to cinch it down. So if it's too small, you're going to bring slack into the bracelet and work it out, and if it's too big, you're going to pull on the tail ends. And then, of course, you're going to need to kind of resituate everything. So crimp it so that it's just the right size, but double check to make sure that it'll fit. So once your bead stopper is on there, you can kind of pull this up a little bit to make it easier for you to crimp. So I'm going to take the magic crimper, or the magical crimper, and this is the one that has the little divot on the inside, and this turns your crimp bead into a little ball. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to place the crimp bead directly in the center of the little balled out section and then squeeze down. So if I was in the center, when I opened it up, it should look like ravioli. So you see how it looks like little ravioli? I'm going to turn it on the side now and squeeze down. And I'm just going to work all the way around in a circle. And then what I would do is trim the tail ends off flush to the crimp. And then for extra security and to kind of mash those tail ends down, you're going to take the smaller size magical crimper, and this is just optional, and you're going to work it around in a circle one more time. Then you refit the size of your bangle, kind of move all your miracle beads around so that they're in the perfect spot, and you have a cute fairy bangle. Thanks for watching.